So this exercise is for everybody. Everybody watching this right now can get your sketchbooks out, get your pens out, pencils, whatever you like to draw with or write with, and we're going to start doodling some shapes. Now, some things to talk about before we really get into details and what this lesson is all about. If you feel like you're not creative and you don't know how to extract scribbled shapes and turn them into creatures or characters, I just want you to know that if you just get the lines down first, you can always come back to certain lines that stand out more than others. So just look at this first thumbnail real quick. I'm not thinking too hard about perfect anatomy or perfect proportions. I'm just letting the lines come out naturally. The darker lines, I'm just pressing a little harder. Typically, the darker lines are going to be the more important parts of the bodies. If the lighting is from above, I'll usually treat the darker lines as the point of shadow without me having to go overboard with too much shading. Because remember, this is a thumbnail sketch. It's not a refined sketch. We're not illustrating anything. So the key to this is to be very minimal on all of the things that we like, all the details and everything. And then what we do is we move on to the next one. So just make sure that you don't spend too much time on each sketch. You can take your cell phone and turn it on the stopwatch. Now, typically, whenever I do thumbnails, I like to put it between 3 to 5 minutes. And even 5 minutes, you're kind of pushing it. You don't want to spend too much time on these because the whole point of a thumbnail is just exploration. It's not to refine a sketch to the point of an illustration or have anything finalized. I think a lot of times beginner artists get these images in their heads of this perfect creature or character that they want to do, and it doesn't turn out that way once they start immediately going into details on their paper. That's something that we all fall victim to. I used to do it all the time. I would get this image of a creature in my head, and then I realized all these details that I'm putting on the paper too early are not working too well. So I have to be very careful about that. The next thing is if you notice how my hand is just flowing back and forth. The key is to keep your hands loose when you're doing these thumbnails. Now, everybody draws differently, so whichever or however you apply lines, just know that it's virtually impossible to mess up when you're doing a thumbnail, mainly because none of these are finalized, so each individual thumbnail is opened to so many different interpretations. One thing I always like to say is, if you take 500 people and make them look at one thumbnail, there's 500 different creatures or characters or props that you see within all the scribbles. All right. So see how quickly we're moving on here? I think I number these quickly too, but I just set up a ground plane as so, just these straight lines. And then that helps me ground the creature, literally ground it, because a lot of times what we accidentally do is we draw creatures and it looks like they're going down a slope when we think they're standing on flat ground. So if you're doing that right now, or if you want to look at your old doodles in your sketchbooks, you can clearly see that, like half of the body is floating and the other half is not. I remember doing it all the time when like a foot was lifted up or 2 feet were lifted up and wasn't supposed to do it. Okay, so also notice that when you thumbnail, the key is to be an idea factory. You want to make sure that each thumbnail is a different idea. Now, we all have different styles. Every single one of us watching this video right now, including me doing it, we all have a style. We all have certain shape languages that we are drawn to. Try your best to choose or force yourself to do different shape languages just to broaden your horizons, okay? Or take a chance. If you do sharp angled shapes, brutalist style, maybe bubbly shapes would be cool. Like this one right here, I immediately started with spheres and giant sphere joints. This is something that I usually don't do, but turns out to be kind of cool sometimes. I didn't spend a lot of time on it, and I'm moving on to the second one. The other thing I want to point out, there's no eraser involved. I'm going to keep saying that in all my videos. You want to avoid the eraser at all cost. Erasing is there to take something away that you know you can't have. But if you're not done designing it yet, then there's real no mistakes yet. All these cool little shapes coming out and these random lines and scribbles, dark, medium, light lines and pressure. It's all there for texture. It's all there for fun. Now, look down at your sketchbooks right now and see what you're doodling. I especially like to hear the stories from folks who haven't drawn in years, and or if you feel like you're not an artist at all. You'd be surprised what you can do if you just open up your sketchbook and just start doodling. That's the fun part, right? Okay, like this guy. It's like a Pillsbury Doughboy, but as a creature. Yeah, I didn't know what was going on. It's like a mound of jelly or cinnamon rolls, like whatever you want to call it. So a tradition that I've been doing in my channel for the past 2 years now is whenever I draw a creature, I ask all of you to name the creatures, which is part of the reason why I like to number them too, so you can, there's context to it. So if you like number 2, if you like number 18 or 20 or whatever, you can name them easily. The other thing is, when we thumbnail, we open up our minds to the possibility of future projects. So even if I have one creature in mind that I want to put in my portfolio and I'm just trying to find ideas out, if I find one in all of these thumbnails, I still have the others to fall back on. And the great thing is, you're basically designing an entire ecosystem without you even realizing it. You always come back to the scribbles that you've done. I mean, how many times have we had a page of thumbnails and we liked more than one, but we knew we only had to pick one of them to take further? It's kind of annoying and it's challenging at the same time, and it's fun. The annoying part is, oh man, I really liked one design, but I better go with this one because I know this is more practical, or just speaking hypothetically, if you ever have to do it in the future. You always come back to the ones that you like. They all have some kind of merit to them, and they end up being very enjoyable. One thing that I would like to mention, and I'm very, very excited to say, is I have finally started a Patreon. So I had a Patreon years ago, and I'm ready to dive into that again. It's an extension of my YouTube channel. So check the links in the description below if you want to join my Patreon. It's an extension on the tutorials. You get to see behind the scenes on how I work with clients and all of the anatomy and different kind of bone structure and muscle structures that I study and draw that I do not put on YouTube, including my digital work. So if you're interested, check that out. Okay, I'm putting a lot more shading on this one. It's, sometimes when we get those drawings in that we really, really enjoy, we can't help but put more detail on it, right? We always come back to that one, that gut feeling of, man, this one just seems right. It's a great feeling. It's euphoric. You start drawing and you're just not happy with what you're doing, and all of a sudden you start drawing this one picture or this one creature, and there's something about it. There's a pull to it. One of the other more difficult things is if you hit a home run with a couple thumbnails and then you're in that flow state, you're in that groove, and then you try to move on to the next one and the next one sucks. just let that happen. It's totally fine. The ironic thing is the thumbnails that we think suck on our pages, others tend to like that one the most. It's kind of like taking pictures and selfies and having friends take pictures of you during nights out or vacation, and you think you look ugly in one picture and everybody else is like, oh, that's a cute pic. And you just go, what in the world? That is not a cute pic. It's weird how our minds kind of shut that down for ourselves. All right. Oh, by the way, I didn't even go over the materials. The paper I'm drawing on is moleskin, and I typically use a 4B pencil from Faber-Castell, but today I'm using a 4B from Tombow. It was more of an experiment than anything. There was no rhyme or reason why I just chose this one. It was just in front of me, so I just decided drawing with it. I like Tombow. They're not sponsoring today. I'm just saying I like Tombow. So if the company is watching this right now, kudos to you. I like your pencils too. Okay, so the important thing here that I forgot to mention also is to keep your pencils sharp. One thing I learned in school years ago is dull pencils make dull drawings. So keep your pencils sharp, and if you have a heavy hand and you don't know how to sketch lightly, this is why I like using the 4B pencil, because for me, 4B allows me to go light, medium, and dark with just using one pencil. If you get too high up in the Bs, like 5B, 6B, 7B, you're basically drawing with charcoal at that point. The graphite's so soft and dark that it's really only good for the dark spaces. Now, if you have a light hand, then yeah, definitely go with the darker ones so that you can get those darker marks in there. I like some of the H's. If it's just the H, you can get some pretty good dark lines with that one too. The regular H is good if you sharpen that one and you want to get some fine details in there, especially those of you that are trying to transition from mechanical pencils into wooden pencils. The H is a good bet. 2H and 3H, those are super light. So the ultimate goal when you draw is that you want to be able to draw the entire thing with just one pencil. You got to simplify your process. So there's nothing wrong with using an entire drawing set. No, that's great. But ultimately, one pencil, no eraser. That's when you know you've mastered your values with a pencil. Because you can get dark, medium, and light with a 2H. You can. Not too dark, though, because then the graphite will reflect the shine of the lights inside the room, and then it gets kind of ugly. So you got to be careful with that. Okay, so here I'm just experimenting with a very weird set of shapes. These shapes are a little more bubbly and or rounded than I'm used to using, but it turned out to be a pretty neat shape. I do remember sketching this one. And I have to counterbalance a lot of those proportions in there. The creature itself didn't feel grounded. Whenever you do a creature and you're drawing the limbs coming out, just make sure that the limbs make it look like it has to hold the body up and it's not just floating randomly on your page, because a lot of times there's no weight distribution for creatures and characters and they don't look good. So you want to be careful of that. I want to take the time and thank all of you for listening to this. I love doing thumbnail pages, and hopefully this has sparked your imagination. Those of you that are kind of in a rut, I get a lot of messages like that where people haven't drawn in months or even years because they just can't find that motivation. Well, that's one of the reasons why I've started the Creature Design Workshop Discord. Check the links in the description below for that. A lot of like-minded individuals. We have contests. We have critiques. And it's just a place where there's warming camaraderie and a lot of art going on, a lot of inspiration. Okay, so be sure to check out my Patreon if you want an extension to the tutorials and you want to dive deeper into creature design and my whole process. And keep drawing, everybody. Seriously, it doesn't matter about your skill level, because at the end of the day, your sketchbook is your diary. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. So a couple months ago, I did a video where I explained the top 7 beginner creature designer mistakes. And then what it was a very fun roast, lighthearted roast on beginner mistakes that creature designers make when they start drawing. So I'm going to continue that, and I'm going to give another small list of things that beginners can do that will help the designs on your paper look better when it comes to designing creatures. Okay, so the first thing that I notice is what I like to call the hill to nowhere. So let's do a creature, for example, just like a simple big shape. Okay, so what'll happen is, let's say there's like a little tail here. You're starting it off really well. It looks pretty decent. You're kind of happy with the proportions, and maybe you have a strange little head up there. There's some horns coming out, you know, something a little almost ram-like. Okay, and then all of a sudden your legs go straight down, but that's not the problem. The problem is that one leg is longer than the other. Most of the time I see it in the back, and then when you put the feet on it, they look too human, and guess what? The feet and the front are up. So what happens is, if this is the ground plane and you go horizontal, which is running parallel to the end of my sketchbook, there's a slight invisible hill going up. So it's almost like the creature is pressing against an invisible rock. Now, that doesn't suggest that you can't just simply put a rock in there, but the overall layout doesn't make any sense if that happens, because one, there's no weight distribution, so the creature looks like it's not stepping on anything, it just happened to do that. So you want to avoid the hill to nowhere. To couple this problem with another one that I see, it kind of goes twofold. What'll happen is you'll have, let's do another body here real quick. Okay, so let's do a slightly longer one, almost like a lizard. Okay, so let's say you'll have a leg, the back leg, there's the hip, okay, there's the ankle, and let's say you do a pretty decent job, okay? You have the back claws going on there, and all of a sudden the toes just start going everywhere, and then the back one, the toes just go up like this. So it's almost like the direction is going up towards the abdomen. We have this one going down at a 45-degree angle nowhere. Okay, so what this ends up looking like, if you were to do like straight legs down like this, is it kind of looks like the creature just accidentally bit into an electric fence, or they got tased, and you don't want that. Okay, so when you have all of these legs going everywhere, but they're still straight and they're going in the wrong direction, you got this hill to nowhere, you got the toes pointed everywhere, it just looks like something is very, very wrong with their bodily structure. Okay, so you want to avoid that. Okay, problem number 2. So let's just do one up here. By the way, I'm going to be filling all this page with just a bunch of scribbles and these drawings. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip it, and then I'm just going to draw a creature where I'll teach you how to think of these things and correct any of the mistakes that you may be doing. Okay. So problem number 2 is a continuation. I like to call it whiplash. All right, so let's say your creature has a neck. All right, so maybe, I mean, this neck could be anything. It could be on a kelpie, it could be a dinosaur, some alien, doesn't matter. All of a sudden, at the very end of the neck, the head looks directly at us. Now, I want to give a disclaimer though. In nature, if you look at animals such as big cats and wildebeest and gazelle and anything with a, any kind of National Geographic photographer where they're taking pictures of these animals from afar and they look at the camera, they do look almost corkscrewed like that. However, the problem is not so much the direction of the head, it is the stiffness of the neck and the body going the opposite way. So you have stiff arms just going straight down into earth, and then it looks like there's no transition from the neck muscles into what would be the head. So a way to counter that is to simply not put the eyes directly front like that. But what you could do is you can draw the back of the neck with a slight hump. Okay, so what is that hump, do you think? Well, the hump is showing that if you were to look at the neck from top view, okay, so let's say here's the top view. Okay, it's getting, it's thick over here where the creature's trapezius muscles would be in the back and the spine. So let's say the spine goes down the middle. The tilt or the turn of the neck, okay, would cause the muscles in the back and the spine to bunch up so we can turn the head. And then when the head looks at us, you can slightly turn its eyes a little bit more to the side of the head. So it still looks at us, but we're given the illusion that in between the jaw and where the neck is, so like right here, it looks like the muscles are contracting or restricting, whichever is happening to move the head. And then two, there's actually fat folds and skin and fur having to contort to bend around that. It adds so much more realism. So you can still have it look directly at us. Okay, now like I said before, there are exceptions in nature. So this isn't 100% always the case, but what this does is it allows good realism. Okay, so you want to make sure bodily movements really happen. Okay, all right, so let's go into problem number 3. Let's see if we can get it over here. Okay, so problem number 3 doesn't really have a name. I haven't named it yet, but it's when the body parts get smaller and larger and they start breaking in places where there are no joints. I see this all the time in tails. So let's say that you have a tail. Okay, you're doing some kind of creature tail and it's coming out of the back of the hip. And all of a sudden it does this. It breaks. Now, an easy excuse would be like, well, I wanted it to break like that. The creature that I'm drawing has a joint there. Okay, why does it have a joint there? Make a little call out and give a note with a reason exactly why there should be a broken joint in the tail. Does it have a function that it needs an extra joint there in order to, you know, sting somebody if there's a stinger at the end of the tail? Does it use the tail as a weapon? Like, who knows? You can't just say you meant to do it. That's just an excuse because you didn't do it correctly. All right. Now, the other thing that'll happen that I mentioned, so let's say, you know, you have that problem, okay, coupled with this. So you'll have, let's say that the back of a hip. Okay, so there's the back of the hip and there's the spine going into the abdomen and everything. So let's say the tail comes out, but it's skinny right there. All of a sudden you accidentally get fatter in the tail, and as you try to whip it around, it breaks, and then it gets fatter again. So the tail looks like it got run over by a car. And like, you don't want that to happen. Okay, so the way I would correct that problem is lightly, so let's go down here, lightly put in the line quickly from start to finish, just like a big swoosh. Okay, depending on what kind of tail that your creature has. So maybe the tails that you're designing doesn't have a big swoosh to it. Maybe it's curled like a pug, or maybe the tail is super spiked and it splits into 3 pieces. I don't know. These are your creatures. But the underlying structure needs to be correct so that any details you put on it, like spikes and scales and whatever else you want to put on it, is going to be put on top of something correct. It's like laying the foundation for a building. Okay? When you dig it out of the hole, or when you dig the hole out of the earth and you start pouring concrete for the basement and then you put the pylons in, you want that to be correct so the building doesn't collapse. Same thing with your drawing. Okay, because what will happen is when you guys are designing these things and you know you start to put details on something that doesn't look good, it just brings out what isn't looking good, the more details you put on it. All right, so to go back to the tail, just hold your pencil lightly, or pen, whatever one you want to draw with, and very lightly put in a couple gestural lines, very light at first, just to get the flow of the tail. So when you do this, you quickly eliminate any second guessing. You just put in that tail, and if it's thick with multiple lines here, that's okay. You will get better over time, and you will need less lines to do so. Okay, the next and final one that I want to talk about before I get into a creature drawing is a big one. Okay, so I want everybody to pay attention to this right now, because when it comes to hands and feet, this will make or break your creatures, especially if it is a quadruped or maybe multi-legged, some kind of crazy 6-7-legged beast. But let's keep things simple, okay? Let's say that you're a beginner creature designer and your creature has 4 legs and it resembles maybe a cat or maybe I don't know, like a bear or something. But see, bears are plantigrade, cats are digitigrade. So plantigrades, they plant their entire palm down and their feet on the ground. So maybe we'll do something a little bit more dog-like. The problem that I see a lot is that the front and the back feet have a heel. Okay, so there's a heel in the back, but all of a sudden you draw your front feet and there's still a heel. So what it is, it's like 4 identical feet going, in that direction. And then what happens, then what happens is there's a proportional change here that's not working. And that is, however thick the entire leg is, the toes are way too long. And they're starting to point upwards, like this. They're pointing upwards, but the ground is going straight across. So it's like, where are they going? If the foot is already planted, and then couple that with having 2 sets of hind limbs, it doesn't make any sense. So let me explain to you what actually happens for something like a cat. Okay, so in animals, typically the front paws, if it has paws or hands, it's built for support and braking. And the front feet typically carry more weight. This is why, they have dew claws there, while the hind paws, they're built more for propulsion. So that's why the thighs are thicker, and animals tend to press off of their hind feet so that it can propel their body forward. And also, the other thing that I want to mention is typically the back legs have less toes or fingers, whichever one you want to call them based on the creature you're designing. It has less than they do in the front. So what happens is in the front, the fingers actually appear a little larger. I mean, if you look at the feet of a bobcat, you'll see that, like the huge paws. It's pretty crazy looking. So the front paws also typically have like what's called a brake pad. Okay, so just to give you a little more of an illustration here. So let's draw very lightly. Okay, we'll put a dog paw in here, okay? All right, so see if I remember how to draw a dog paw. Okay, so we have claw number 1. Okay, and we'll have like a pad here. All right, the pad on the side, okay, those are called the digital pads, because it's a digitigrade. There's one. Okay, there's 2 pads up here. There's a claw, and then there's a metacarpal pad right there. Okay, no, I'm sorry, that's not the metacarpal pad. This down here is the metacarpal pad. There we go. So then we got the paw coming down here, and then you got your little dew claw right there. You got your spur, which is another padding. It's pretty crazy. And then you got your carpal pad back here. And of course, they're kind of cool shapes too. Okay, you got your little claw up here. All right, so you have all these cool little paddings going on. All right, so all of these up here, these top 4, those are your digital pads. We got this one in the middle. That's called the metacarpal pad. And then you got your spur right here, and then you have your carpal pad back here. Now, the back of a dog, so let's say the back feet. It's kind of fun drawing dog pads again, because I haven't done this in a while. And we're just keep this very simple, very loose. Okay, so we'll put the shape in here. These two tend to be pretty close together too. So we'll put the claw, and then it stops there. So there is no spur and no carpal pad back here. There's no dew claw either, because the dew claw is right here, typically in the front. So if you're drawing a creature, let me see if we can line this up. If you're drawing a creature that kind of resembles a dog, or maybe nothing like that at all, maybe you're drawing a dragon, maybe you can kind of follow the same type of finger pattern and direction. You put your dew claw on the front. All right, so we got the metacarpal pad and the back foot, okay, and then these four are called the digital pads. All right, metacarpal, digital pads. There is no spur and no carpal pad. So when you're drawing your creature, okay, let's say that the hand comes down, do not give it a heel, okay? Instead, make it a little bit more interesting. Give it a slight 45-degree angle down here where the tendons, you got all your metatarsals, all of the cool little ligaments, all the little bones, carpal bones inside there going this way. And you want to thicken those up. So let's just put some big claws in there. So this back here in the corner, you want to show some lift. Okay, you don't want to make the hand go flat down unless you're a human doing a push-up, or if it's like a bear or something that's plantigrade, then that's different. Okay, save the more flat foot for the back. So I think this will help. Okay, and then make sure that, guys, draw the ground plane. Just draw it in here first. Seriously. If you want to draw a foot, just draw the ground plane so that you know where all the toes are resting. Okay, because what will happen is you'll just start drawing fingers floating in the air, and it kind of looks like rigor mortis is set in, and it's just like dead feet. So you want to be careful of that. Okay, so comment below if this is helping you. If you want to dive into some more in-depth lessons, I do give lessons because I just started a Patreon, so check the link in the description below if you want to see behind the scenes of my tutorials, if you want to see my client work, and you can also just join for free, so it's fine. Maybe you want to hang out for a while and see some updates. So check out my Patreon below. I'm really excited about that too. I just want to further the education that I give for my YouTube channel. And I want to thank all of you for being here too. Yeah, I mean, this channel wouldn't be anything without you guys. So thank you. Okay, so let's get into some really cool and fun creature designs, and I can show you guys how to check yourself if you come across any of these problems so that you can have a really good snowball effect, and a good one and not a bad one. All right, let's do it. Alrighty, now we have the fun part. So make sure that you sharpen your pencils, make sure that your page is clear, you're sitting up straight. If you're slouching, catch yourself. Okay, take a drink of water, shake your arms out. Let's do it. So the view that I'm going to be doing in this particular portion is more of a front three-quarter view. So the sample that I gave in the beginning of the lesson was straight up side view. I recommend everybody now listening to this, especially if you're a beginner, to start in side view, because you can see more of the overall silhouette of your creatures if you do that. You can see what's working, what isn't, if it's too busy, if it's, the proportions and everything. Once you figure out your creature in side view, then it's a good idea to try to do it in different views because you already know what body parts are where. Okay, so if you try to look at a spiked spine in perspective, you don't know how many spikes are actually on the spine because it's foreshortened. So if you do it in side view, it has 8 or it has 10, and then you know where to put it in the distance. But anyway, here I go, just lightly figuring out what I want in this creature's head. Do you see the lines that I put through the eyes? That is usually my my marker as far as perspective goes, and making sure that symmetry is happening the way I want it to. I can also cut the skull in half vertically across that horizontal line, and then I have a nice little cross or a 90-degree angle. So then I can measure things both ways. All right. You can see how loose I'm being, guys. My palm is mostly not touching the paper. So it's slightly off view to the right. My pinky finger is what's guiding my hand. I get asked a lot, how do I keep my drawing so clean? I don't draw over top of what I'm sketching, or at least I try not to. It's not always going to work, no. To piggyback on that, I've been getting messages coupled recently. It's funny how it all happens in clusters about, hey, how do you keep the pages clean when you shut your sketchbook and over time the page on top of the drawing smudges? Well, in that case, you have one of two options. One, you can spray it with fixative. Two, you could mix in black Prismacolor with the graphite because it's wax based and it helps keep the graphite down. Guys, listen, your sketches are ultimately going to smudge throughout time, like regardless. Not all the time. Like if you sketch the entire thing in black Prismacolor, then smudging is decreased exponentially. We're talking, you can have a sketchbook that's 10 years old, and if you have a sketch in there that was made by black Prismacolor, maybe a little bit of smudging, and that's it, especially on marker paper. Okay, so you can see here, just jump back up to the picture real quick. You can see that I'm just loosely figuring out the stance. Look at this creature's front left leg. He's bringing it, or it's bringing it, slightly forward. The creature's front right leg is slightly back. Because what I'm trying to do is show a counterbalanced stance. Okay, we all living beings have that anchor leg. Okay, we want to see through our drawing which leg is holding most of the weight up for our body in order to stay balanced and upright. All right, so now I'm just using minimal shading, that's all. Not a lot. By the way, I apologize. I have the light on our left, and I just realized that it was kind of picking up some shine. I think I also had the window open a little bit. It's just a beautiful day out today. It's 75, sunny. We're not going to have too many more of these days. Okay, it's September or October. Oh my gosh, it's the wrong month. It is August. My mind is everywhere. Anyway, I'm figuring out the hands now, kind of taking into account this is the front. So I'm going to put one extra nail, one extra finger behind those three. I think I added in a little later, but I believe that I keep the back foot at 3. Okay, so you can see that little bend that I gave the hand there, and I'm calling it a hand. So I'm making sure that I'm not putting a heel on it. Now, if I wanted to put in a dew claw, the dew claw will be happening in the front right there. Okay, so I believe, yeah, I only do 3 toes in the back. It was becoming more like I don't know, tapir feet or even rhino feet or hippo feet. But I just went with it, keeping things loose. Just look at the lines going back and forth. They're very suggestive. They're very suggestive on tendons, muscle shapes, ligaments, scrapes, where the location of maybe exoskeletons could be. I don't know. Pay attention to what I'm doing to that tail too. Remember when I was saying earlier about broken tails make it look like it got hit by a car or run over? You want to quickly put the tail in. Now, if your tail design is intricate, then that's one thing, but you should still draw the underbody of it lightly. Also notice that the very back of the head, you can see the neck slightly above it. So the head itself is almost, the creature is almost rearing up or is very curious and just kind of happened to look over at us as we're walking through the jungle. Or maybe it's out on the plains and it's just grazing and kind of hungry, and all of a sudden it looks at us and go, well, I'm an omnivore, I could eat you too. So you don't want that to happen, but The funny thing is about this particular part, those spikes that I was drawing, the three on each side, like the cheek and then, back where the ear could be, I was thinking, man, now I really need to draw an ankylosaurus or an ankylosaurus, however you want to pronounce it. I do promise you all and to myself that I will be drawing more dinosaurs. I want to. I miss it. I miss it so, so very much. The other thing I want to mention, I kind of briefly went over this before, a couple things actually. I just recently started a Patreon. I'm super excited about it. It's been a long time coming. It's an extension of my YouTube channel. So a lot of the stuff that I show or that I work on behind the scenes, I can't really show on YouTube. My YouTube is geared more towards drawing ability and just becoming a better artist in general, with an emphasis on creature design, of course. But I'll get into the nitty gritty of like reference gathering, digital painting, and more in-depth lessons and tutorials through my Patreon. Okay, and you can even join the Patreon for free. So it's not about the money. It's about just broadening your education. All right. I do have a tier 3 that I will be dedicating towards live streams, separate from YouTube. All right, anyway, the other thing I want to mention is early signups are going on for my Creature Design for Film and Games course at CGMA. So we are 3/4 of the way through summer term already. I cannot believe it. And we talk about reference gathering. We talk about head design, muscles, skeletal systems. We talk about functional features. We talk about overall presentation. So early signups are going on now for fall. So check the links in the description below for that also. Isn't this fun, folks? Comment below. Let me know what creature you want to see me draw. I read everything. Okay, I do. And sometimes I can't always answer in depth like I want to, so please don't think that I'm ignoring you. If I give you a heart, just to let you know I read it. But if you ask questions that are maybe a little too long to answer just through the YouTube channel, join our Discord. That's the next thing I want to talk about. If you want to join a ton, I mean over 7,000 members of like-minded people doing creature design contests, drawing contests, sketchbooks, showing pics of the inside of their studios, their cats, all kinds of stuff. Art related, of course. Join the Discord because it's a bustling community. I'm not guaranteeing this, but you will most likely instantly form friends. So check that out. We've got a lot of stuff going on. I have a great team of moderators. Those of you moderating, you know who you are. Thank you so much. So just be sure to check the links in the description below for all the information that I was giving. I look forward to seeing you over at my Patreon. I just posted what the schedule is going to be like beginning Monday. Thanks everybody for tuning in. You are amazing. And until next time, peace. So have you ever wondered how to put your characters and creatures inside of an environment in your drawing? Well, I'm going to show you how to do that today, but before I do that, I want to mention that we're going to keep things very simple. The actual atmosphere that I'm going to be drawing in and the type of environment, it's going to be a simple jungle / foresty scene, and we're only going to keep the foliage around the creature. So we're not even going to be doing a lot of cityscapes or anything for that matter. Because if you're new to this, then I don't want to overwhelm you. So you can see here that this is a very, very light outline of what I want the creature to be. So it's not going to look like much right this second, but you're going to start to see the outline forming. And whenever I do a bigger scene like this, I always like to make the outline of what I'm going to eventually be shading in later. Now, it does help to have some knowledge of anatomy when you do a more fleshed out, detailed drawing like this. Mainly because If the creature is to live inside of an atmosphere and an environment, for that matter, it has to interact with certain things like trees and dirt. It has to be able to walk over terrain, things of that nature. So we have to know how creatures step. We have to know, or at least have some kind of inclination about how the weight shifts if it has to step over a rock or through the grass. Just watch squirrels outside, watch your pets as you take them for a walk. Observing nature like that really comes into play. All right, there we go. So you can see the tusk coming down here, and then we have a strange little creature head. It's not going to be a large creature. It's more of like a kind of reptilian, and also a little prehistoric looking too. I originally was going to draw just a full-blown dinosaur. I do love paleo art, and I do love dinosaurs, so I think what I'm going to do next time, if you guys enjoy my content and you want to see me draw dinosaurs, I think I'm going to do that. Comment below if you have a dinosaur suggestion that you would like me to draw. There are hundreds. I have drawn dinosaur-like creatures in the past, and I can't remember what video it was, but I do remember a long list of potential dinosaurs that I could draw. So just, shoot me a comment, and let's see what we can do. Okay, so this particular creature is going to be lizard-like, and it's going to be walking towards us. And it's going to have the body structure similar to like a Komodo dragon, or if you want to think about dinosaurs, like a Protoceratops or something on the smaller scale. There we go. Okay. So here's what I like to do when it comes to lessons like this. We have an outline starting. Now we need to think about the environment in which it's walking through. So remember when I said jungle? So let's start putting some foliage very lightly in front of some of the arms here. Some of the arms, like there's 50. No, there's only 2 arms. These are just petals and leaf stalks. And I want to make sure that it at least bends as if you're walking through it, and the creature is pushing the leaf and plant petals towards us, because the creature is walking this way. That was a horrible it's walking this way, but it's looking over there, maybe for food or something. The other thing is, if you want to put it in an atmosphere and you really want to make it look like it's interacting with it, put some of the foliage behind the limbs and maybe one limb coming out in front of the foliage, so it gives the illusion that it's stepping through it. Okay, so right here on our left, it's a very faint outline of a plant with almost like driftwood or some kind of thick bushy stalk right there, and then I'll put some flowers or something at the end of it. Okay, so here's where I like to put at least the first bit of shading on it. So let me move this over here for the lighting. It's so light, guys. So I have this light on our left, and it's I'm hoping that the pencil shows up. Okay. Oh, by the way, the materials that I'm using: 4B Faber-Castell. This is graphite. I personally like Faber-Castell just because I've been using it for almost 20 years now, probably even longer. If you like other brands, you can still achieve what I'm doing today with other brands. Okay, there are others. I mean, there's Derwent, you have Ebony, you have so many different kinds of brands, Verithin, and then the paper that I'm drawing on is moleskin. Now, those of you that are not familiar with moleskin, it is more of the pricier sketchbook. However, the quality it's rarely matched by other sketchbooks, and that's just my opinion. Okay, there are other brands out there that have very good paper. Okay, so, I mean, I know old school wise, you could just sketch on vellum and still get a smooth effect. Okay, so you see what I did here. I sketched a very thin layer just running across all of my markings. Okay, see that outline that's showing up? In my previous video, I explained this, but I'll explain it again. If the outline is darker than the shading, then you can shade over everything. Because the shading itself, like what I'm doing right now, it's not darker than the outline, so it won't ruin it. And secondly, you want to avoid putting too many outlines on your work if you want it to be realistic looking. And I know that's kind of controversial, especially with folks that have a cartoony style, and that's fine. This is more for people that want to transition from cartoony to more realistic, and it's all about the edge work that you do, because you know, on the edges of our creations, if we outline it too dark, then it's going to seem comic booky. If you're not going for that, then that's a problem. If you are going for that, fantastic. Okay, so we have two different layers. It kind of looks like a fence or a lattice work with all the strokes and everything. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to tilt it again and hit this hit this at slightly a different angle. This takes a lot of patience, guys. If you're the type of artist that is impatient and you need to see results quickly, take a step back, take a deep breath, breathe in your nose, out your mouth, look at your picture and tell yourself, baby steps. This is a process. You do not have to get perfect results quickly. No, that takes time. Okay, so in time, you know, time is our worst enemy, right? Regardless of what we're doing in life, time always seems to be the thing that we can never get enough of. You know, I lost count how many times I've told myself there are not enough hours in the day to do what I need to do. There aren't. I mean, we as human beings live on a 24-hour planet. Okay, that's just what happens. And the older I get, the more I realize why Thomas Edison never slept a lot. So the rumor goes. I could be wrong though, right? I believe it was Thomas Edison. He hardly slept. A lot of the inventors barely slept. And of course their health declined too. Speaking of health, take care of yourselves, everyone. We're artists. We do not take care of ourselves, so be sure to hit the gym. If you can't hit the gym, walk. Just go walk. Just go breathe in actual air. Get out of your stuffy apartments. Get out of your stuffy condos and ranch houses, whatever you're living in. And go outside and enjoy nature. Breathe in actual air, because it really, really does help your thinking process. Okay, so you see what I did here, everyone. Very light outline of the beginning of the drawing. Notice how the shading went past the body. That's okay, because all of those markings and the shading that happen on the outside, that's going to become part of the environment anyway. I'm going to be giving a smoky effect to everything, and it is my personal style that I've developed over the years. However, I'm not patenting the effect. Okay, so any one of you can try this style out, try to put in fog and atmosphere and you know, just an overall sense of, hey, this creature is actually walking through a swamp or walking through a humid environment where it's kind of hazy. I always love that effect because it keeps everything ambiguous, and that's ultimately what you want. So the arms themselves, like the forearms on here, it's very, very lizard-like, but I put in a very, very faint hint of human, just to keep it weird, okay? What's a piece of art for me if I don't keep it weird? right? Try to be unpredictable here. Okay, so now that we're starting to layer on these different plants, we're starting to layer on some of the fog or a hint of the fog. The next thing to do, that I like to do, is putting the details on the face just to get things started. So I've noticed that I haven't really shaded vertically on that head. So this is about the third pass, and whenever I teach this type of shading, I'm always telling people, by the third pass in a different direction, you're going to start to get a good coating of graphite, and that's what you want. So now is the time to start thinking about what type of bone structure that this creature has underneath. Okay, this isn't more, well, I should say, this isn't an anatomy lesson. It's just about what we as creature designers have to know if we want to make a full-blown creature sketch. I am thinking that the head up here is going to need something really cool, almost like a ridge of not so sharp plating going across here. It needed something on that head. But anyway, the bone structure of the skull. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start shading in the edges and slowly bleeding in some graphite into the head near the eye. Very light. Okay, what that does is I make sure that I'm not pushing too dark and I'm not ruining any of the outlining that I need in order to know where I'm shading. You see how I'm going back over the previous area? I'm going outside the lines down here. It's okay, folks. It's okay. That this does not have to be perfection city. Okay, allow yourself to layer on all of these different effects for your creatures. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in an indication of an eye socket just by darkening up underneath that eye. And then over here where the nasal cavity would be. So the nasal cavity, that little indentation that I have right in there, it's just a hint. There's skin on it, so it's not going to be super defined, but just enough of a ridge in the head to where we know that there's skeletal shape under there. And now what I'm thinking is those tops, they should probably be a little sharper. I think that'd be kind of neat. Maybe like a cool little bony ridge going down that head. Okay, cool. Now what I'll do is I'll just start adding in some values around the eyeball again. This is going to be another shading lesson just as much as it is atmosphere and creature design too. So if you've made it this far, comment below and tell me if you are currently having a breakthrough with your art. Because I know a lot of you may be not knowing where to start. Maybe you used to draw and you haven't really found that fire yet to keep going or to start back up again. All right, that's why I do what I do. I want to make sure that you guys are comfortable with drawing again, and hopefully this stuff is helping you. Now that I put that on there, I really don't like that. Maybe I should not have done that. Oh man, okay, happy accidents, right? Because we are not using an eraser, anybody. No erasers. All right, I have to turn my body a little bit here so I can get this a different angle that I have not gotten this at yet. Okay, slowly but surely, I'm filling up the entire body, and then I'm going to release it. So now, over time, you'll be able to see layer upon layer upon layer over top of each other. That's definitely something that you want. You see how I'm slowly darkening up the beginning of that tusk? It's because right here, where it meets the skin of the jaw, anytime there's a directional change. So like a corner and a new thing happening, I like to go dark to light. So let's look at another part. See the tooth coming out here? See the mouth going on top of the tooth, which is the lip? Dark to light. Right around there, and then same thing on the other side of the tooth. It just, it's a cool little effect that I've been doing over the years, and it just happens to work. All right, so I think we're gonna have some protruding brow ridge right there. I don't know yet, but it seems like that might be a good bet. And then a little nose. It's like a little slit. There we go. Okay. So we got like a little stout face right here. Just to make sure that my hand is comfortably placed. When you draw, everybody that has a pencil or pen in their hands right now, you all have that one position in your hand that allows you to form the best lines possible. Keep using that. That's key. Okay, there we go. Now here's the fun part, everybody. See these sticks, or this stick right here? Maybe I'll put some more plants. Just an indication of plants. I'm going to take my pencil and I'm just going to shade directly past my creature into those sticks. And I'm going to release pressure as I get near the edge of it. I'm going to do it again, just at a different angle. And here I go, angle number 2. And then I'm going to turn my sketchbook maybe this way. I don't know if it's going to show up on the camera. No, it's not. I just want to make sure you guys see everything. Okay, that one is. So it's going to hit it. It's going to be vertical for you guys, but it's horizontal for me. So let's go across all the plants. Okay, so I want to show you what's happening here so that when you guys are illustrating your own little environment, make sure that the subject matter is going to be darker and showing up than the background. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to outline again very faintly the creature, especially down here by the neck. I'm going to leave some of the outline completely blank. Remember when I was telling you last video about the sfumato effect? So for example, under here where this tusk is, I can just take some of the value inside the creature and I can just push it right off into the atmosphere, and it's going to look like I accidentally smudged it. That's okay. Let that happen. Because we can always go back over that area and add in more fog. Okay, you see how, oh look at that. The bottom of the chin as it's going down into the bottom of the jaw, you can see that. And all of a sudden it gets kind of smudged, well, smudged looking. Let that happen. That's a good thing. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm just thinking about what the muscles look like around the jaw. What's going on with the lip. Down here at the edge of the creature, I'm just going to be very careful. I'm just going to brush in some pencil strokes right there. Okay, so now I can go back in under that tooth. There's going to be shadow. So small circles. Why am I doing circles? The small tiny little ovals that I'm doing help me shade and keep control of it instead of just trying to go up and down, up and down, up and down. Because a lot of times that won't work. Okay, let's see where we're at. I'm going to start back here at the neck again. Back at the end of the jaw. And again, this is probably past what, number 5? Keeping the strokes close together. And the way I'm holding it is towards the back. It's almost towards the butt of the pencil. Okay, I'm leaving all the space for me to just let hang and go back and forth. Okay, and by doing so, you can start to see that the head has a nice coating happening of graphite, of shading, I should say. Okay, and then any details that I put on here, the surrounding area around the details will already be shaded. So that's why I'm doing that. I probably should darken the eye though. Okay, there we go. Some areas that I'm probably not happy with, probably like right here. Of course, I'm not done with it, so it's not that I'm not happy with it, I'm just not done with it. And the jaw is it's become very interesting. It's almost snake-like. And that wasn't my intention, but it just happened like that, and I'm kind of glad that it happened like that. So we'll see where that takes us. And remember what I said about in my last drawing, how if I'm working in one area, I get an idea about another, I just got an idea about another. So I'm just going to extend the belly out. See, there's the arm. It's going behind the plant. So here's the plant. I'm going to outline the plant just a little bit so you guys can see it. Big stalks. It's almost like a succulent. Almost like that, so you can see the stalks of the plants. That's a species of plant that I'm just going to have to draw throughout the rest of the picture too, and I don't want it to just be right there for the head. So maybe there's like a small mound of dirt. Okay, and then we'll put other plants in here too, like weird shaped, I don't know, mushroom type plants, fungus even. So we'll see. We're just going to build it up as we go. Remember at the beginning when I said we're going to keep things simple. We're not going to go really past this as far as atmosphere. You don't need much. Okay, so I have shifted the camera just a little bit and kind of shifted my lighting so you can see more of the pencil. So hopefully that's working. I'm going to put a little bit more detail on the face, mainly underneath this tusk right here, just to show some shadow, as well as indicating some of the strong jaw muscles happening. Okay, there we go. Now notice how I have not even started doing scales. I haven't done any fur, hair, nothing for that matter. There's no point to do that right now. All I'm worried about is making sure that the values look good against the background when I'm putting in the plants and everything, and just making sure that there's an environment there for my creature. Alright, so it may have screwed up there, I don't know. So I'm going to turn the tooth root in the skull this way, similar to what happens with the Smilodon, or saber-toothed tiger, for those of you that don't know what Smilodon is. I think that's what I may have to do. So I got to be very careful about that area. So in here is going to stay puffy, because that tooth root's going to be curving. Okay, and then, yeah, so more around the bottom jaw here. The cool thing about this is that when you start putting shading in a specific area, you can start to build the values off from that area in a circle. Well, like a sphere. Okay, like you start with the face, and then you just kind of branch out from the face and just kind of gauge what's happening there based on just that one little area. So all of the details so far and most of the shading has happened within the eye area. Cool. So now I have the edge of this jaw, and it kind of bleeds into the atmosphere. So now I know what to do with these plants down here. And of course I'm going to keep building on it, so it's not even done yet. But like up here on the head, I know to get a little darker, because this is going to be closer to us, so it's going to catch some of the shadows. It's like head spikes. They should probably be sharp, shouldn't they? Probably. And then I'm going to kind of bounce around too, so I'm just going to go back to these legs. Oh, I don't want to shake the camera either. Go back to these legs. And I'm just going to keep the darkness on the legs, but keep the light on the background here. I've changed the angle again, so I think this is going to work. Notice how I have most of the shading in the head, and it's kind of faded off as I go into the body. The next technique is to continue shading across everything that you've drawn. Even if there's plants and rocks and whatnot that hasn't been included yet. Go across everything. This is the most freedom you can have as an artist, when you're not worrying about constraints, and you're not worrying about staying inside the lines. Notice how I'm just shading up here into the oblivion. That's what you want. Next, I'm going to hit this at a different angle, and I'm going to go probably top right, and I'm going to go down. I'm just going to keep the pencil strokes close together, and I'm not going to stop until I hit that bottom left corner. Now, depending on the angle of your hand, sometimes as you get towards the end of your shading, they're going to start to spread apart a little bit more, and you're going to get these streaks happening. It's okay, everybody. It's okay. It does not have to be perfect right now. As a matter of fact, it doesn't have to be perfect ever. Just enjoy the process. Okay, so you can see these streaks happening. It's almost like cross-hatching. Well, I want to get rid of the cross-hatching because I want to fill it in. Over here, and there's nothing over here, I'm just going to start to lightly place in some value, and I'm going to brush it up at this angle now, not caring about how perfect strokes could be. I believe that that's what artists worry about most, and that's what we get it in our head of what the drawing should look like at the end versus enjoying the process of actually getting it to the end. So I want all of you to turn off that inner voice right now. Yeah, it's way easier said than done, right? But it is possible. Okay, see what I'm doing here? I'm just jumping to the bottom of the throat area. You can start to see the atmosphere happening. Where the plants are over here, there's going to be fog and humidity, and I mean, there's going to be some strange stuff inside there. Okay, so let's make sure that the throat is a little darker than the background, just a little. Okay, and there's going to be some parts where it's going to be darker than this. See the jawline right here? Right under where the skin of the throat meets the jawline, that's where the least amount of light is coming. There's like a crevice inside the bottom of the jaw. So that's where the least amount of light is going. And now look how well this stands out against the atmosphere. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to shade more of the atmosphere again. I'm just going to go into the background, right over top of the shading I just did for the throat. See how all these gaps are starting to smoothen out? I haven't used a blending stick. I haven't used my finger to smudge, which is terrible to do, by the way. Don't do that. And I haven't used an eraser. There's no need for any of that. Just work the drawing. Okay, there we go. So now it's really starting to fill up, and it's starting to build to something that we can establish as atmosphere. So now what I want to do is I'm looking at the bottom of this tusk. You see how outlined it is? That this is an instance where the outline actually can work for you, but the light down here, so see how the tooth is curved? I'm just going to very, very lightly start to put in some values, and I'm just going to do small little ovals. I mean, we're talking tiny. And I'm just going to work it back up the tusk, and I'm going to stop once I get to the middle of it. Okay, now, why would I stop the shading in the middle of the tusk? Well, let's look at the surrounding values. I say this all the time when you guys are shading. In order to have a not flat picture, you have to look at how any two values are sitting next to each other. The darkness of that tusk is looking good against the lighter background. As I'm moving up into the jaw, I already shaded a darker jaw around the tusk. The tooth is light. See the difference? See the difference here? And I took care of all of that in just one tusk, which is what you want. Now here, where the tusk grows out, I'm just going to put some indications of maybe some tooth enamel or tusk enamel, whatever. It's my creature, so I'm just going to call it what I want. Maybe it's growing down there because it's old. Another thing that I like doing is I can see the mouth crease more clearly now, so I'm just going to put in very, very sparingly some dark patches, almost like black holes right here, because, you know, think about imperfections of nature. Think about when a snake or a person or a, I don't know, like a buffalo, any kind of animal closes their mouth. Okay, the top and bottom lip don't meet perfectly in nature. Okay, there are like small little gaps where the muscles don't, you know, flatten out against the bottom lip or the top lip, and you can start to see little gaps in there where there's no light. That's what adds realism. Okay, so notice how I'm just kind of putting in some darker shading right here to show where a lip could be. Really starting to play up this face area. Okay, there we go. So if I move it back this way, you can see more of the shade. Let me shift some of the lighting here, depending on how I'm going to shine it, and I also don't want to make it too blurry for you guys. Okay, that's decent. So now, see how sharp my pencil is still? Always keep that pencil sharp. I think that bottom jaw does not look good now, or the chin. So here's what I'm going to do. This is an experiment, so you guys are witnessing this real time. I'm going to protrude the bottom chin. See if that works. Maybe make it come out past the snout. Okay, I don't want it to look like an angry dog, but I'm starting to think that maybe this was not a good idea. Okay, that's decent. I think it needs an extra tooth now to cover that area. Yep, that's better. Whew, crisis averted. Okay, so instead of freaking out, I just worked through it. So if you guys have to go through something similar, just take a step back and, you know, think about the possibilities that your drawing could have instead of the mistakes that you probably think will happen. Because if you keep thinking that you're going to make a mistake, then you're going to do that. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, when you bust out your sketchbooks and you immediately tell yourself, well, I hope I don't suck today, or this drawing is going to be really bad, check this out, then it's going to look terrible because you're setting yourself up for failure by your, you know, your I guess you could say your inability to tell yourself, I'm going to do good today in this drawing, even if it doesn't turn out well. Just let yourself have fun with the process. Okay, now the layering is really starting to come in. I'm starting to think of the lighting too. You know, the lighting's from above down here, so I can start putting in some shadows under here, so you can see that the edge of this arm has been established already. Think about the lighting though. This is key. This arm isn't all going to be in shadow. Probably only the forearm will. So I want you guys to think about why I just said that. Why is it that I would only have about half of the forearm in shadow, and this would be in a lighter setting? So I'll let you think about that for a minute. And then I'm going to come back to it. Alright, so I'm just going to come back over here on the neck area. The way I'm holding my pencil now, you can't see off camera. It's really close to the end. Okay, and I'm just going back and forth like this, but I'm making sure that each stroke is controlled. Okay, so remember what I said about that arm? If the light's coming from above, this whole head and the thickness of the neck is casting a shadow against the very middle of that forearm and then down, probably into the plants or whatever else is happening on here. So if you want to do that as a shadow, you can outline the edge of the shadow, but do it so faintly that you can barely see it. Just go over the arm here. You're going to start to see a very, very faint line. That's good. and then start putting in some darker values. You're going to have to be more careful when shading this area. Put in some values on that one. And another area that's going to get a shadow, guess what? This bicep right here, there's going to be some shadow in between this arm crease. So we're going to put in some darkness here. See that? Okay. Ooh, this brings up a good teaching moment. If you have defined muscles in your characters or creatures, please stop outlining every single line of the muscle. Not everyone is ripped, and that's not how skin sits on top of muscle. Okay, you want to do this subtly. So this bicep line, there's going to be some skin in there. It's going to look rather fuzzy because there's fat, there's skin layer, there's muscle, all of that underneath there. Blood, veins. Those of you interested in taking your creature design ability further, I teach a course online for the Computer Graphics Master Academy called Creature Design for Film and Games. I've been teaching that for nearing a decade now. And what we do is we develop the reference gathering skills as well as thumbnailing and overall design and presentation skills so that your creature designs can really stand out, not just for yourselves, but for portfolio's sake too. So I've broken it up into 8 weeks. Okay, and just to give you a little rundown of how this works, you're going to start off with reference gathering, and then you move to thumbnailing, thumbnail refinement, and then you move to functional features. You're going to start to narrow it down, and you're going to pick the thumbnails that you want to develop further, so you're going to be better at self-editing. And then what you do is you take muscles and skeletal anatomy from animals that exist and you study those. You try to implement some of those into your creature's design. And then after that, then we start to worry about the facial structure and the skull, and you really start to learn how to piece together a believable creature. And that's what we ultimately want. So check the link in the description below for my course. I teach it every term, and right now we have summer term going. These students are busting out some awesome stuff, and early signups have started for fall term or autumn, however you want to call it. Okay, spots are limited. We cap the classrooms at 20 students, and we already have some signups for October, so that's when fall term starts. So make sure that you take advantage of that. It really is an awesome experience, and there's fun lessons to be had and also camaraderie for like-minded individuals that take the class with you. It's just a lot of fun. All right, so here is where we can have some creative freedom and kind of make up some muscles. I know that you guys have been wondering about that. It's like, how do I know where the muscles go, and what if I want to manipulate it and it doesn't look like the animal reference that I'm gathering online? And the truth is, as a creature designer, we kind of have some good creative freedom in making stuff up, as long as it is functional. Okay, so I want to take advantage of this very, very powerful jaw, and I just put some extra muscular structures in there without me knowing exactly what the muscle is. Okay, I will be the first to admit that. I don't know. I split it off into two. Okay, but that's all I'm going to do. I don't want to overwork it. So if you're an artist right now, a beginner artist, and you're wondering why your muscle anatomy just looks bad, most of the time it's because even if you are making it up, you're putting small lumps clustered together in areas where larger muscles should be existing. So, for example, look at this arm right here. Okay, we have a larger bicep muscle for the critter, as well as larger collection of forearm muscles. Now, just go online right now and look at a Komodo dragon, look at an iguana, look at a lizard standing like that. You'll see that there's a lot of thickness happening on those lizard legs, and there's not like huge muscle after muscle after. I'm not drawing the Incredible Hulk or anything, okay? I'm just drawing a lizard where the deltoid muscle and the forearm muscles need to be stretched out and larger so that the creature can function properly. It's all about function, everybody. It really is. So another thing I want to mention, if we want to get into the technicalities of this, see how this jaw right here, this very powerful large jaw is kind of hanging down right here. If I go over right here, there's atmosphere happening in there, there's space. I'm going to put a slight bump down and then back up, and then I'm going to color that part in or shade it in, and then the rest of the jaw is going to stay outlined like this. Now why did I do that? It's because I have to show, let me get this darker right here, I have to show that there's structure happening on the other side of the skull. All right, that's one of the reasons why everyone's drawings look flat if you're just starting out. You have to make sure that if your creature is even in side view, this isn't perfect direct side view. This is not an orthographic drawing for a modeling department right now. This is more of an illustration. You will be able to see some of the other side. I'm going to start to work this neck some more. I tell you, man, when I really get fixated on an area and I'm in the flow state and I'm really feeling it, I don't want to let up, because I feel like I'm going to lose that momentum, and I don't want to do that. See how much time I've spent just on the creature itself? That's okay, because we can get back into the atmosphere in a little bit. Also, the other thing is, if you want to put some realism in here, lighting wise, the top of this jaw is going to be a light catcher. The light coming down, this is acting like a shelf. Everything happening under here, the jaw is rolled under. It's kind of like a big cylinder. So technically, this will be in shadow. And then this will have a core shadow on it. This is a big light catcher. So I have to be very careful with that. And I want to make sure that if I put a core shadow in, I'm just going to lightly brush across that rounded section, that muscle. Like that. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that this all stays fuzzy. I don't want to define everything with perfect muscles. I don't want to do that. I probably do have to take out that line right there. Remember, I just want everything to stay fuzzy, because the fuzziness allows the skin to look like it has a fat layer under it. There's not a defined ripped bodybuilder sense of musculature here. We don't want to do that. And of course, the shadow of the tusk is darker right where the tusk is basically touching the skin of the jaw. And then it's moving over. Now look what's happening now. And this is so much fun. It's neat to see this come to fruition. This is really popping off the page now. You want to make, this is all about atmosphere too. You want to make sure that the subject matter looks like it's living and breathing within an environment. Okay. Now, once I get into like the plants here, which I think I will. So here's like a large, maybe broken tree stump, maybe some bark. Okay, and then remember that stick that I drew before? Well, the shading is covering most of it. That's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lightly brush in some more value for that stick. This is an opportunity for you guys, if you're starting to draw the atmosphere around your creature right now, make sure that it stays light and looser than what you have for the actual creature, because the creature itself is the selling point. Back in the day, I would put too much detail in that thing, in the back. Okay, teaching moment. Look at the forearm. Look at the bark of the tree stump. Too similar. It's way too similar. So, guess what? The tree stump is farther in the background. We have some atmosphere happening. We have humidity. we have fog, we have mist. So this arm is going to be slightly darker. But oh no, what's going to happen with that shadow we originally put on the forearm? Well, we're going to get darker with the shadow. It's all about gauging how any two values are meeting each other. That's all. That's all, guys. Okay, I'm using small ovals for the shading. I'm going to go probably at a different angle here because I don't really like how that's looking for my personal taste. So I'm just going to go back this way. See how I'm going outside of the lines? I'm not pressing harder, I'm just filling in the gaps. There we go. I'm going to show you a trick here in a minute. So if you're worried, ooh, did that come back into focus? Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so if you're worried about all these values bleeding into each other too much, see the edge right here? I'm going to put some very, very faint but darker bumps, because that's going to be the texture of some of the skin on this creature. Okay, see how that's standing out nicely against those plants right there? But I'm not done yet. So this line right here on the forearm is darker. This is still lighter. I'm going to take some of this value and I'm going to bring it into the arm. I'm going to press as hard as I did for that line on the outside. And I'm going to fade it into the forearm. And slowly but surely, look what's happening. It is bleeding into the arm quite nicely. Okay, even if I walk it up here too, so it's a little darker than the atmosphere. Now look what's happening, guys. Check this out now. What happened with this forearm meeting the neck? Look at the neck. The forearm and the bicep is darker than the neck. I don't want that. The neck is closer to us than that bicep. So I'm going to go down here to the bottom of the neck and I'm going to make that darker than the arm. Not by much. This is all about build-up. This is all about patience. And look what just happened. This is what would freak beginner artists out, and they would start doing, getting an eraser and erasing that area because it's too dark and too light. No, you just weren't done yet. That's all. So now look, the neck is defined against the arm is defined against the background. Boom. Mission accomplished. One thing that I did forget to mention in the beginning of the sketch is that if you're having trouble sketching smoothly, but you're applying a good enough technique, it could be your paper. So the reason why I like sketching on moleskin so much is because of how smooth the paper is. If your paper has too much teeth in it, or it's too toothy, then it doesn't matter how good of a shader you are, it's always going to appear rough. So you want to make sure that you have a smooth enough paper, and also it's just more incentive to keep your pencil sharp. The sharper the pencil, the more that the tip of it is able to get in between the grooves of the paper in order to shade better. So if you have rough paper and a dull pencil, your shading is going to look like crap, and you don't want to do that. Because then what's going to happen is you're going to have to keep shading over certain areas over and over and over again, and you're going to accidentally get too dark. Not enough graphite is going to be able to hit all surfaces of the paper, and then it's just not going to end up the way you would hoped. So it's not a reflection of your skill per se, but it's more about the paper that you're using. Now you can you can shade beautifully on rougher paper, but that's usually if the drawing is very large. If it's larger and you have to take a step back to view it, then it usually looks better. But if you're doing detailed work up close, then it's better to have smooth paper. Okay, so since this head is pretty small up here towards the top, I just want to give indications of the skull shapes underneath. All right, so there we go. And this whole light catcher area, this whole cheek area is really important because I want to be able to put in a core shadow here on the edges. and roll it up into the rest of the head. This is what adds depth. This is what adds thickness to the skin and to show that there's muscle underneath. Because ultimately, what's our goal, everybody? Our goal is to show that this creature is living and breathing within an environment on a 2D surface. It's one of the most difficult things you can do as an artist, but if you have patience and you layer it like I'm doing, and I'm sure that you guys are doing. I'm sorry, I'm trying to clear my throat here. If you're doing it slowly and methodically and building it up over time, you will be successful at it. Because not every area that you sketch in is going to have to be super detailed. You're going to have to let some of these areas be looser and other areas be detailed. Okay, there we go. See the edge of this jaw right here? I don't want to edge it off with a super detailed line. So what I'm doing is I'm just making small little circles and I'm overlapping those so that the edge of it is fuzzy. So that allows the indication that there's shadow over there, but also thick skin at the same time. There are some parts in these neck wrinkles where I actually will outline it slightly, but it does work. Just like little clumps. I always like looking at red iguanas, the species. So you just go online and look at red iguanas, look at all the pictures, and you can see just all of the really awesome wrinkles on the necks, I should say. Okay, so we are really getting somewhere now with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a little bit more value across the body. Okay, and then down again at this angle. Okay, so now we're starting to fade off that into the distance. Here's the thing, one of the biggest things about this lesson is atmosphere, distance between the objects that you're drawing and the mist and the fog that's happening in between it. So I still want to be able to outline this tusk a little bit more. If I do happen to outline it, what's happening is the tusk itself is looking rather flat. So I'm going to put a core shadow down the side of that tooth, right like that, to show that there is some roundness to it. And then the same thing's going to happen probably over here. The edge of the tooth right here is kind of faded in with this. If I change this lighting around just a little bit, you can kind of see it get darker. See it get darker? Like that? You could probably see it better if I just draw like that. I'm going to actually put darker skin behind it. I'm not going to outline it. I'm just going to start at the tooth and go towards the rest of the chin. So fade it up. So you notice how I didn't outline that with a perfect line or anything. There we go. Okay. That's looking pretty decent. Now, let's see what we can do down here towards the feet. I'm just going to hint at some claws. Just hint at them. I'm going to spread those out a little bit. Maybe a bigger claw right there. Let's just make it 4. Okay, so I didn't do much, right? Let's say that this creature is trampling on most of the foliage around here. However, maybe some stalks of grass are kind of coming through the toes. So I'm just going to highlight some plants and maybe some fungus or whatever that may be poking out. There we go. Now I haven't figured everything out yet, but what I want to do is give myself an idea of what could be happening there. I'm not going to settle on any kind of detail. This claw I'm pretty happy with. I like the tilt, so I'm just going to shade it in slightly, and then this claw right here. Okay, and I'm going to leave it. Now I'm going to build it up slowly again. The grass stalks, I'm going to outline, and they're going to be chaotic, which means that they're not going to grow evenly. If you guys want realism, Stop making your fingers and your tentacles and the spikes and the grass and the tree branches all flowing the same exact direction. That's what makes it look stiff. Okay, so in here, I'm probably going to have to be a little darker. That's the inside of the forearm. Notice how I'm still being very fuzzy with it. And I need a shadow right here. Because remember, I originally had a shadow and then we had to lighten up everything over, or keep everything light here, darken it here. So I'm just going to put some value on the bottom of that hand again. Right like that. Okay. Now I'm pretty sure that I still want the shadow to be in that same spot. So I'm just going to turn my pencil to the side and really walk it around in a half circle shape, or like a dome. Because remember, the forearm is basically a cylinder. So you need to have the shadow keep that shape. So maybe just put a little darker. You can see that ring happening. Now the key to making that look good is to press as hard as what you see in the ring down for the rest of the hand. And you want to make sure that the darkness is even throughout. Okay, and it's not. So we need to keep going. Because what that means is that everything is going to be affected by that shadow. Okay, so we're talking the hands, okay, the grass. So the grass is also going to be in shadow. Okay, and then so's that grass stalk. I'm starting darker and I'm getting lighter as I'm moving upwards. Okay, this claw, I'm going to make a little darker. Now, at first it's going to look rather uniform, so there's not a lot of difference in values here. That's because we're not done yet. We haven't played up on the different types of values that we can put in. Okay, so I'm just going to put some random bumps in between the fingernails. See how everything is the same and there's no contrast. That's okay, because we're not done. I'm actually going to put some more shading just going right past the hand here. Now, if you're a beginner, this is probably where you might be freaking out, like you messed up. You did not mess up. Watch this. I'm just going to go over everything. I'm not ruining a thing. I'm just adding layers. See how I just went past the feet down here? That's okay. Okay, I'm going to turn the sketchbook again. Maybe in this direction. Let's see what we can do if I turn it this way. And I'll hit this pretty much horizontally, going up over that hand. And that's it. I won't get any darker than that. Okay, let's go back down. There we go. So now, let me turn this so you can actually see. Okay, so let's see what we can do now. The nails, I'm happy with those, like the shapes. So I'm going to darken the nails right as they come out of the finger. And I'm going to fade that down into the ground. Here's another nail. Everything is fuzzy because I'm shading with those small circular motions. Okay, so the ends of it are fuzzy and they're not super tight. All right, so I need to think about the carpal bones up here for the wrist. This is how you add realism, everyone. If you're wondering why your stuff just doesn't look realistic enough, like it's always missing a joint or it's always looking bubbly and cutesy when you don't want it to, this is why. It's because we're not making all of the body uniform. We're actually adding in muscular depth, extra joints, or not extra joints, but actual real joints to show how the articulation of the hands and the rest of the body. Probably want to add another claw in there because it didn't seem right. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 claws here. That's a pretty gnarly hand. Okay. I've said gnarly in probably, I don't know, last 2 or 3 videos. Okay, so now I'm just going to indicate the tops of the fingers, the fat of the fingers, like this. See the outline of each finger? I'm going to take small circular motions and I'm going to move upwards towards the wrist. And I'm going to fade that off. Look at how the values are coming through now. Now this thing is really coming through and it's still remaining darker than what's happening around here. So what that means is this tiny little bit, let me move this up a little bit. See that tiny little hill like this? I'm just going to add some random bumps just to have it be the floor of the forest or the ground that it's walking on. Okay, now let's say I want to have some plants that are closer to us. So I'm just going to slowly but surely start to maybe follow up some of these shapes. And I'm inventing it as we go, folks. Okay, now this one's pretty cool. Guess what? I can get even darker right in the front. Thick to thin. See how I'm going in different directions, like a plant is just sprouting and it just is right in front of all those branches that I drew. Look at the layering happening. Let's say I want the grass to kind of come back over the creature. Okay, look how dark the shadow is for the creature. That means that the grass petal has to be darker than that. Look how that just popped right off the page. That means that the grass petal is close. Okay, and then let's have some fun. Maybe put some little flower buds on there, or whatever kind of plant it is. Remember, like, I don't know where this is. This is a made-up land. There we go. Oh, also, you'll probably hear like a lawnmower in the background. Every time I record, there's some kind of lawn care happening. It's summertime for you. All right, so let me go back over that shadow. Okay, and then in here, it might be a little too light, so I'm just going to put in some values right on top. Now here's where you can really start to add in some cool atmosphere. See the edge of this arm right here? It's kind of fuzzy. There's the elbow. I'm just going to take some of that fuzziness and put it right up into the air. Just right past the arm. So it's going to look like I smudged it. But what that's going to do is it's going to bring this creature into, like, stepping through the fog. And then what I can do is take some of that fog and wrap it around that branch very lightly, like that. Let me see if I can tilt this up so you can see it in a different light. See that? Probably a little too blurry. Okay, there we go. This is how we're building atmosphere, everybody. Hopefully you're enjoying this. Tell me what you're drawing. Tell me if you had a breakthrough. I love reading that kind of stuff. And I'm sure everybody else does too, because, you know, when you have a bunch of artists together and you guys are having breakthroughs and everything, and maybe you haven't drawn in so long and you can't figure out what you're doing wrong, or you just don't have that spark, sometimes knowing that somebody else had a breakthrough kind of lights a fire under you. Okay, there we go. So we have some broken branch right there. Maybe we can indicate some foliage in the background right here. Just slightly darker, just to kind of fill up that area. Like that. I don't want to get too much darker than this, so I might get darker on the elbow of the creature, and then that's it. Because technically that's a core shadow running across that forearm. So that's going to be darker. Chest is going to be darker than the bicep. Okay, there we go. Okay, so let's move over to this area. Let's kind of fade off some shapes that could be in nature. I'm just shaking my pencil sporadically just to indicate, like, hey, maybe there's a small little bush there or something. Like we have that coming through. There we go. All right, so let's move on to this arm right here. I want to see if I can tackle this. Very strong creature too. These forearms are pretty big. Okay, and we got that grass petal coming there. See how I accidentally drew over the grass petal? I didn't mean to do that, but whatever. It's okay, we can always fix it. Put in some more shadow for the arm. It's all about layering too, everyone. Just learn how to layer these sketches, and it really does go a long way. Okay, so I'm just going to put in some more value through the plant. There we go. I can still see the edge of the creature, so it's not like I'm shading into a super random spot. I still want to know where I'm shading, because really, like, back in here is really important, because the back foot is going to be showing at some part. So I have to make sure that the ground can be seen, and everything has good contrast. Okay. Now, the nails down here and what they're actually digging into, that's up to you. I want it to seem like moss and soil, so a lot of this will get faded off. You won't even see the tips of the claws. You might see a hint of pure black or something really dark, because that part of the claw is really showing up, but other than that, it's just going to be ambiguous. Okay, and then this hand over here, it's going to be less detailed, so we're not going to worry about it. So I got to turn my body to make sure I shade this correctly. Once again, I'm hitting the entire body in one pass. These strokes are closer. Okay, now that's looking smooth. Good. Okay, so let's figure out what we want to do with, like, the top of the neck here too. There we go. Okay, hopefully you're liking these longer sketches too. This is something that I've been planning on doing for a while on my channel. Just want to make sure that you guys are getting the lessons that you deserve if you're really looking for good instruction on drawing. You know, I don't sugarcoat any of this, so I'm just going to tell you how it is so that you can achieve these effects. This chest area is going to be kind of challenging, just because probably the angle of my sketchbook here, so I'm just going to try to turn it. The chest itself is going to be in shadow, but not heavily, because remember, we are worrying about atmosphere. We're not worrying too much about detail in certain parts. Probably just going to have to keep this sketch upright. Okay, so that's like pass number 7,600. Okay, let me see if I can shift this light around so you guys can see. There you go. I have to make sure I have enough light so I can actually draw this thing. Okay, part of the chest. Okay, there's the split. There's the split down the middle, the center line. Okay, and then part of the neck. There's not going to be much there. It's just an indication. Remember, this is not a human, so he's not going to have like Arnold Schwarzenegger pecs or anything. Okay, everyone. Now we're at the point where I want you guys to view some time lapse. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. And you can watch me build up the rest of the atmosphere for the sketch. So if you've made it this far, congratulations on your journey to becoming a better artist. This stuff takes time, but with time comes knowledge, comes skill building, and becoming a good sketcher and a good artist does not happen overnight. Becoming a good creature designer and a character designer does not happen overnight. You have to allow yourself to fail so that you can get better. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. Now sit back, relax, grab your sketchbooks if you haven't already, and enjoy some time lapse.